Hello and welcome to Politics Hub on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Joining me today on Politics Hub is the presidential candidate of AAC, African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore. Education is in part of the presidency. They've not been able to provide solutions to
because they're not interested.
So how do you plan to solve that?
So as far back as 1991, 92, it was. I actually met this even as a student. The student had proposed what they call academic reform. Students now, and part of it was to invest heavily in the universities and to make sure that education is free, accessible, and of quality. And at that time, Nigeria was awash with petrodollars. As a matter of fact, during the Gulf War oil boom, most people don't know it, this generation, Nigeria had excess of $12 billion that was frittered away by the Babangida regime. And ASU at that time was asking for 3 billion naira to solve all their problems. But Babangida had 12 billion, he frittered it away. The World Bank was telling them, don't spend on education, don't spend on social services. But let me just fast forward. Today, Europe, United Kingdom and America, Canada, they are poaching our doctors, nurses, the people we train in the university that say we should not invest in 1990, in 1989. They are now coming to the same country to pick their doctors and nurses. Why do you think they are doing so? It's because regardless of what they asked us to do, they realized that the Nigerian education system was still producing some good quality people. And it was because to some people, not to a lot, it was still affordable. When I attended the University of Lagos freshman in 1989, the school fees, we can't call it fees, the admission fees, etc., they were all 40 naira. Or if you want accommodation, it was 90 naira. I paid school fees twice. And accommodation twice. My third year, they expelled me. So when we came back, I didn't bother to pay school fees because on their record, I was expelled. My fourth year, I didn't have to pay. I was student union president. But what I wanted to say is that even that 40 naira was too much money for my dad, who was a teacher, to pay. But guess what? In 1974, 1975, and 1976, the minimum wage of a teacher was 120 naira. The rate of a naira to a dollar was 70.75. That is, 1 naira was 75. One naira was above the dollar in terms of value. So if you are earning 120 naira as a teacher, grade 2 teacher, in 1974, 1975, and 1976, how much were you earning compared to now? The minimum wage today in Nigeria is now up to 120 naira of 1974. So it means that workers have been earning less, but the cost of education has been skyrocketing. Because if your child is at Unilag now, by the time you are done with all the payments, you probably have spent 250,000 naira. And your minimum wage is 30,000 naira. That means you have to combine over 4 months of your minimum wage to be able to send a child to the University of Lagos. I'm not trying to confuse you with maths here. This is just simple arithmetic of how life has been degraded over time. Now you come back to ASU. We're saying invest in education. ASU is asking for 1.6 trillion naira. That's to be paid in 6 tranches so that they have all the investment they need. You said no, that they will encourage other unions to go on strike. That's not the issue. But in the same country, the Accountant General of the Federation was able to steal 150 billion naira, and another $900,000 was retrieved from him. So far, we have retrieved 30 billion from him. He's in possession of the rest. One person. So you mean Nigeria that can give Accountant General access to 150 billion naira? I'm sure it's more than that. That's how much they could trace. Cannot give ASU 200 billion so that they can go off strike. In Nigeria, that's able to invest $2.5 billion in a private refinery, Dangote refinery, cannot give the same amount to universities so that we can have universities that are working. No, it's just nonsensical. It's senseless that We are even here arguing about, oh, they said, ASU is asking for too much money. You have not talked about our Father Christmas rule to countries like Niger, where we bought SUVs for their leaders. Why are we buying vehicles for the government of another country? Senseless. This year, we gave $1 million to Afghanistan, a terrorist state, as a donation. But we cannot give $1 million to ASU. Doesn't make sense, right? And I can give you several of these, examples of where Nigeria has been wasting funds and refusing to pay attention to education. And the truth is that it's not only ASU that needs to be satisfied. We have to take some 20 million kids out of the streets all over the country. Those are kids that have not had access to even primary or secondary education. And we are here arguing about, should we invest in education? It's a must, whether we like it or not. All the countries that are doing well today invested in education. I'll tell you, I was at the Columbia University in New York doing my master's. This was 2001 to 2003. The kids that came from China, who came to do the same program with me, China, they were receiving $50,000 as study grants. $50,000. Every child that came, everybody that is my class from China. So they were living large. People that came from Japan, over $150,000, because they know that those kind of education are pretty necessary from their own development. Nobody, of course, gave me a dime. I went to school, borrowing funds from the U.S. government to fund my education. But what was different was that the night I arrived there, I had enough funds from grants and loans to take care of my accommodation. If I wanted a car, I could have bought that night. I just signed a few papers and they said, oh, approved. By the time I look at all the monies approved, it was almost about $40,000 given to me by the US government to do a master's degree in the US. I wasn't a citizen of the country. Fast forward, by this year, that same government, after paying down my debt up to a point, and I have reason to say I can't pay anymore, they sent me a form to fill about a month ago. They want to forgive the loans that we owed. During COVID, the US government, while I was in detention here, sent me a request to collect 1,600 at first, and $600 and another 1,400 for COVID recovery. I'm not a citizen of the US. I just have a green card. They're begging me to come and collect what they believe I'm entitled to. My country was stealing Indomie in the warehouses. So how do you compare these kind of leaders? They're not serious. I just had to go down this route so that you can understand the gravity of what Nigerians are going through.
Talking about what Nigerians are going to, our time is actually fast spent,
Yeah,
but I'll just ask you two more
much.
questions. Do you support restructuring? Because they've been complaining.
Restructuring is this constitutional change that I'm talking. That's my own restructuring. I'm not talking about the commercial restructuring. There's a commercial angle to everything in Nigeria. Some people, when they lose elections, they talk about restructuring. When they win, they say they don't want restructuring. There are some elders, when they are broke, they start shouting, so they'll call them and say to them, no, not that kind of restructuring. It has to be holistic, because if you go around the country, the definition of restructuring, changes from place to place. You go to Niger Delta, it's resource control. You go to Yoruba land, it's police, state police. You go to the middle, the north central, they have their own definition of restructuring. You go to the southeast, it's breaking away from Nigeria. That's how to restructure Nigeria. You go to some general persons, it's economic restructuring. So it's only a brand new constitution that can accommodate all of these arguments at once.
All right. Lastly, looking at insecurity and other aspects, the electricity and all that, why should Nigerians vote for you? Are you going to tackle these things?
If you look at my constitution or our manifesto, we are very clear, not just about what needs to be done. We broke it down to naira and kobo as to how they can be achieved. When we proposed a minimum wage of 100,000 in 2018 and 2019, people were making fun of me. It was like, how are you going to pay it? These Facebook economists and Twitter Twitter analysis said it's going to cause inflation. The simple economic decision that people should have wages that can carry their responsibility doesn't cause inflation. There is inflation in Nigeria, and it has nothing to do with wages. If wages cause inflation, Nigeria should have zero inflation because we have the lowest wage structure in Africa. Even Sierra Leone is paying a better minimum wage than Nigeria. You can Google it. So it has nothing to do. We're just saying that people who are working deserve to get paid. When I made proposals about, and we're talking about it outside, about marijuana, people are like, Sowore wants everybody to be high in Nigeria. What I was saying was to people is that I've seen into the future, and this is a commercial, plant. And now Canada is making $4 billion a year from selling and processing weed. New York made 300 million naira just announcing that they will allow it for licensing and loan. So imagine if my state, Ondo State, that has the best weed, some said it's Delta or Ekiti, but the place called Ogbese, Ondo State has the best weed in the world. If they are making $1 billion, you won't need to be going to Abuja to go and be struggling with states for all this small allocation. But the governor of Ondo State tried it. I didn't say he smoked it, but I heard he smokes too. But they stopped him. The NDLA said, no, you have no right to touch weed. But the NDLA, unknown to a lot of people, actually issues out licenses for people to process weed. They can't claim it's for research. So I just gave you some of those examples as part of the clairvoyance of our ideas. But these ideas are on the website of Sowore2023.org. Electricity, we have said we'll push it from 7,000 to 28,000 megawatts minimum for the country, and create an enabling environment for people to also retail electricity. How do you retail electricity? You can actually sell electricity the same way we sell recharge card, through solar panels. So if you have a solar power on top of your roof, it's like growing electricity. You can sell to your neighbor and say, look, you are licensed right now. Only one part of one agency in Nigeria is licensed to sell electricity. That's NBET. But just make it clear that you buy the meter from the federal government, or you get it from the federal government, that enables you to sell electricity, so that you don't overcharge your neighbor. Imagine if that were to happen. Everybody will make sure that they get a solar panel, they get access, and sell to their neighbor, or they sell to a common pool. And the national grid would disappear naturally. Imagine if we are still on NITEL, 50,000 landlines. We wouldn't have had the kind of so-called revolution in the mobile telephoning industry. But that's even nothing, because this one is a scam. But what I'm saying in conclusion is that we have all this lined up, from security, power, infrastructure, fighting corruption, restructuring, healthcare, housing, education, agriculture, to technology and tourism. It's called Spicer Heat.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. But I think I would like to just go back on my word a little. The Obi Datti, do you see them as a strong company?
Which one is Obi Datti?
Their supporters.
I don't know who is Obi Datti. I know what you're referring to. Is the Obi campaign. No, I don't see them as company. What I predicted about them is happening already. It's hype, and I know what happens to when things are packaged in that direction. So they hyped everybody to believe that this is a solution to the country. The hype might have worked on some people, but it was a political strategy designed to shut everybody up. But now, go and look at the activities. You see that, like Chino Achebe said, things are falling apart.
Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
It's wonderful having you with us in the studio. That's all we have for you on Politics Hub. Do well to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin.